This is the BassForecast bait breakdown on the suspending jerkbait. In this short video, we're gonna cover these 5 topics: key features, top tips, matching forage, rod, reel, and line, and hook set. Let's begin with the key features. The suspending jerkbait is a fun lure to fish, and here are its components. The jerkbait is made of a hard plastic hollow body that is usually long and slender with a relatively short bill at a flat angle. It'll either have 2 or 3 treble hooks depending on the length of the body. And lastly, each jerkbait has just the right amount of weight on the inside. That way, when it dives to its max depth, it can stay in that water depth the duration of the retrieve. Now, different jerkbaits have different lengths of bill, which means they dive to different depths. Short-billed jerkbaits like this one only dive from 1 to 6 feet of water, whereas longer-billed jerkbaits like this one dive all the way to 12, 15, 18 feet of water, depending how long and at what angle the bill is. Now, choosing the right length of bill all depends on how deep the fish are sitting in your water column. So if your fish are in 10 feet of water, you want your jerkbait to be in 8 to 6 feet of water. If the fish are all the way on the bottom in 16 feet, you want your jerkbait to be in 12 to 14. You'll notice there I talked about always having your jerkbait above where the fish are. The jerkbait is one of the least weedless lures possible. It has 3 treble hooks, so you don't want the jerkbait to be making contact with the bottom like you do on a crankbait. You want a jerkbait to be tantalizingly going back and forth above a bass's head. In the lure category the jerkbait fits into is the moving or reaction bait category, but it can be worked very, very slow. So let's talk about that. So the retrieval on a suspending jerkbait is a little more complex than most lures. Let me show you. I'm gonna back away from the camera here and show you the entire process. So step 1 is to make a long cast. Once the bait hits the water over your area, then you reel 5 or 6 times to get the bait down to the maximum diving depth. Again, each jerkbait has a bill length that allows it to dive to a certain depth, and then once the bait is down there, it is now suspending. So it's your job to impart the suspending jerkbait action. And doing that is very simple. You reel in your slack, you point your rod tip at your bait, and then you jerk, making sure that your rod tip ends back up right where it started, pointing at your lure. So you reel in your slack, jerk, jerk, right back to the bait. Again, it is a simple jerk down and back up. I go from a 3 o'clock rod position to a 4 or 5 o'clock and back up to 3 every single time. And depending on the BassForecast rating for the day, that should tell you how active the fish should be. So if the rating is a 2, maybe go jerk, pause, and wait 6, 7, 10, 15 seconds before your next pause. And if the rating is an 8, 9, 10, maybe go much faster. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. And the bass on your body of water will tell you how they want the bait retrieved, because sometimes it can be way too fast or way too slow. Moving on to location, where should you be throwing your suspending jerkbait? You gotta throw it in open water, and open water. But how deep should you be fishing your suspending jerkbait? Well, that all depends on where the fish are in the water column and what kind of jerkbait you're throwing, because jerkbaits dive to different depths. So I would always recommend starting with a shallow diving jerkbait, because you want your jerkbait to be above the fish's head. And if you're throwing a deep diving jerkbait to start, you may be starting too deep by fishing underneath where the bass are. So I would say it's always best to start with a shallow diving jerkbait, and if you don't find them that shallow, maybe try deeper in the column. And lastly, the conditions to throw a jerkbait depend on the wind and the cloud cover. If it's cloudy and windy, go with a faster, more erratic with less pauses retrieve. And if it is slick, calm, and sunny, really soak that jerkbait. That means when you get it down to its max diving depth, you give it a jerk and then you let it pause for a long time. Especially the colder the water, the longer the pause. Now, when it comes to matching the forage in your body of water, the jerkbait does a fantastic job at that. Because the jerkbait is not a fast-moving lure across the column, it has time to stop and pause. The bass usually have a second to look at it and think, do I want to eat this? Is it real? Is it fake? And so because of that, your color has to change from clear water to dirty water. In clear water, the fish have an extra good chance of looking at it, so you want to imitate your bait fish, your forage species, to the best of your ability. So if it's bait fish, throw a bait fish style color. If it's perch, throw a perch. Doing this best on your body of water will help you catch more fish than your buddies. Now, this bait branches more into the reaction bait category when it comes to stained or dirty water. So I throw a lot more flashy colors, straight white, yellow, chartreuse, maybe some black and blue in my jerkbait. It'll give those fish a good chance at finding your bait and striking. But as always, colors on any lure can be a confidence thing, so find the color that works for you. And because the Jerkbaits Retrieve is a quick, snappy action, you're gonna want a shorter bait casting rod, 7 foot at max, with usually a medium power and a fast action. And a relatively fast, medium to fast retrieve gear ratio is going to help you pick up that line to get a hook into the fish. Our final topic for the suspending jerkbait is the hook set. The majority of the time, a bass will eat your jerkbait on the pause of the retrieve. So if you're jerking like this, a bass could eat it right now, or right now. And so if you go to make your next jerk and you feel like your jerkbait has hit a wall, that's probably a fish, not a wall. When that happens, it'll most likely surprise you, but don't be surprised into a hard hook set. Just like a crankbait or a spinnerbait, all you gotta do is reel in your slack and add pressure to that fish, and you'll hook almost every jerkbait fish that bites. We hope this video gives you more confidence in using a suspending jerkbait so you can adapt to the conditions and catch more bass. And I'll see you out on the water.